You see them everywhere, right? Sign in with Google, continue with Facebook. We click these buttons all the time, and we just don't really think about it. But what is actually going on behind the curtain? How does some random app get permission to see your contacts without you ever giving it your password? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack today as we dive into the invisible digital handshake that basically powers the entire modern web.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the fundamental problem, the password problem. Then we'll meet its solution, which I like to call the digital valet. After that, we'll walk through the actual step-by-step handshake. Then a new question pops up that changes the game, which leads us to its counterpart, the digital ID. And finally, we'll nail down the crucial difference between these two really powerful ideas, authorization and authentication.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Imagine you just signed up for a cool new app, and to help you find your friends, it has a big, friendly button that says Import from Google Contacts. This right here, this creates a huge security problem. The app needs your contacts, but there is no way you should give it your Google username and password. That's just a non-starter.
And that right there is the million-dollar question. How do we let this app do one very specific thing, and only that one thing, without handing over the master keys to our entire digital kingdom? Giving away your password is off the table, so we need something way smarter.
Well, the answer to this whole dilemma is a protocol called OAuth 2.0. This is the industry standard for what's called secure delegation. And honestly, the absolute best way to wrap your head around it is to think of it like a digital valet service for your data.
Right, so the most important word to focus on here is authorization. OAuth 2.0 is all about what an application is allowed to do. Notice the key words, temporary and limited access. The app isn't trying to become you. It's just asking to act on your behalf for one specific tiny task. This is pure delegation.
You know, this valet key analogy is just perfect. When you give a real valet your car key, it's a special one, right? It can start the car and maybe drive it a bit, but it can't open the trunk, it can't get into the glove compartment. OAuth 2.0 does exactly that. It gives an app a temporary valet key to a tiny piece of your data, not the master key that unlocks your entire life.
So how exactly does this digital valet key get made and handed over? Well, it all happens through this really clever multi-step process that we call the authorization handshake. Let's just walk right through it. It all kicks off with a single request. When you click that Import Contacts button, your browser is sent over to Google with a long URL, and hidden inside that URL are these parameters. The request scope tells Google what the app wants, in our case, contacts. The callback URL tells Google where to send you back when you're done. And the client ID, well, that's just how Google knows which app is asking.
Okay, so that request kicks off a four-step dance. First, you get sent over to Google, you sign in, and you see that familiar little box asking, hey, do you allow this app to access your contacts? You click Allow. Then Google sends you back to the app, but it adds a little temporary code to the URL. Now, this code isn't the real key. In a really crucial security step, the app's server, not your browser, takes that temporary code and exchanges it directly and secretly with Google server. And in return, it gets the real prize, the access token. That is the valet key. And now the app can finally go fetch your contacts.
But wait a minute, let's just pause and think about what just happened. In the middle of that whole process, you had to log into your Google account, right? You had to prove it was actually you granting permission. This means Google successfully figured out who you were. And this little observation, it sparked a brilliant new idea.
And that idea leads to this super powerful question. Hey, why are we making the user create a brand new username and password for our app when they just proved their identity to one of the most trusted companies on the planet? Can't we just, I don't know, piggyback on that login to sign them into our app too?
And the answer, of course, is a big yes, thanks to a technology called OpenID Connect. It's this really clever, super thin layer that's built directly on top of that whole OAuth 2.0 process we just looked at. It's designed specifically to answer that who question.
So let's get this straight. While OAuth is about authorization, what an app can do, OpenID Connect is all about authentication, which is figuring out who you are. It doesn't replace OAuth, it just extends it. It uses the exact same digital handshake, but for a totally different reason, to get a verifiable digital ID card for the user.
And here is the most elegant, beautiful part of this whole thing. To switch from asking for permission to asking for an identity, you only have to change one tiny little thing in that very first request we saw a few minutes ago.
And there it is. That's the whole magic trick. Instead of setting the request scope to something like contacts, the app just sets it to OpenID and profile. That simple change is like a signal to Google that says, hey, I'm not here to get data. I'm here to find out who this user is so I can sign them into my own app. It's that simple.
So the flow is pretty much the same. You click Sign in with Google, you approve it, a temporary code gets sent back. But this time, when the app server exchanges that code with Google, Google sends back not just an access token, but also this special thing called an ID token. And this token is basically a cryptographically signed, tamper-proof digital ID card. It has your profile info, like your email, baked right into it. The app can trust it, grab your email, and bam, you're logged in. No new password needed.
So, all of this brings us to the core takeaway, the one big thing you should remember from this entire explainer. It's that fundamental difference between these two protocols that work so closely together, yet do two very different things.
Let's just put it side by side one last time. OAuth 2.0 is for authorization. Its whole purpose is delegation. It's asking the question, what can this app do? And the result you get is an access token, that temporary valet key. On the other hand, OpenID Connect is for authentication. Its purpose is identification. It asks, who is this user? And the result you get is an ID token, a verifiable digital ID card.
So the next time you click one of those Sign In With buttons, you'll know exactly what's happening under the hood. It's not magic, it's just this really sophisticated, secure dance between authorization and authentication. And it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? Every single time you place your trust in this invisible handshake, what new possibilities are you enabling for a more connected and, hopefully, a more secure digital world?